You're listening to CherryPickin Entertainment.
Throw me the ball and watch what I do with it.
You are now tuned into the CherryPickin podcast with your host, Andre Cherry.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the CherryPickin podcast. I am so sorry that I didn't have a podcast episode for you last week, but this week we're back for Week 8 action. This will get you ready for the action this upcoming week, and we'll get this kicked off. We'll get this started. Before I hop into the games, though, I do want to just shout out to my alma mater, Illinois State University. This past weekend, ISU held its homecoming, and ISU plays FCS football, if you're not aware. My Redbirds of Illinois State dominated the Indiana State Sycamores by a score of 44-7. Golly. They improved their mark to 4-2 overall and 2-1 in the Missouri Valley Conference. The Redbirds outgained the Sycamores 416 total yards to 168. ISU ran the ball extremely well, racking up 244 yards on the ground. ISU quarterback Zach Anixstad set a career high in the game as he threw for 4 touchdown passes while also adding 79 rushing yards. On defense, defensive back Dylan Gearhart led the Redbird defense with 11 tackles, a half tackle for loss, and a quarterback hurry in the victory for the Redbirds. They improved to 4-2. This upcoming weekend, the Redbirds will travel to Youngstown, Ohio to face off against the Youngstown State Penguins. So shout out to Illinois State. I wish I could have been there for homecoming. I haven't been back to ISU homecoming for several years now, but I need to get back out there. It's always a good time in Normal, Illinois. Always love seeing my friends and fellow Redbirds. One of these years, I'm going to get out to an ISU game. I would love to take this show on the road, so to speak. But I did want to give some love to Illinois State. Roll, damn Redbirds. Roll, baby, roll. And now, with that, we can get into the action on the FBS level. This past weekend, we had a big-time game, Washington versus Oregon. This was the 115th matchup between these two rivals who were both ranked in the top 10 coming into Saturday's matchup. I'm actually recording this late on Saturday night, trying to squeeze this podcast in because I got to give you this content. I know you love it. I know you need it. And so I want to just give you this content to get you ready for Week 8 action. In this matchup, Washington versus Oregon, this was a wild game. Both offenses racked up plenty of offensive yards as these two teams nearly had 1,000 yards total combined. Huskies quarterback Michael Penix Jr., he had a big day throwing for 302 yards with 4 touchdowns and 1 interception, while Oregon quarterback Bo Nix went 33 for 44 for 337 yards and 2 touchdowns. Bo Nix currently leads all FBS with an 80.4% pass completed percentage, which is high. That's very good, very efficient. I caught this game in the fourth quarter and witnessed Oregon's defense hold its ground against the potent Washington Huskies run attack. Oregon stopped the Huskies on 3 run plays inside the Oregon 2, with running back Tybo Rogers stuffed on 4th and goal from Oregon's 1 with 6 minutes 33 seconds left in the game. Oregon had all the momentum as it was coming down to the wire, but Oregon's head coach Dan Lanning had some questionable play calling in which the Ducks failed on 3 fourth down attempts, including 1 attempt late in the fourth quarter when Lanning decided to try and end the game with the Ducks offense rather than punting and giving the Huskies a longer field to try and score when Oregon had the lead up 36-29 late in the fourth quarter. The victory was ultimately sealed for the Huskies after Oregon's kicker missed his field goal attempt to the right. Michael Penix Jr. is continuing to make his case for the Heisman, and with this victory is keeping Washington's college football playoff hopes alive. He currently has the most passing yards per attempt in FBS at 11.2 yards, and he is amazing to watch. I mean, back to in the days that he was at Indiana, he was sensational. This guy is a playmaker in every sense of the word, and the Huskies continue to roll, and they're going to be a legitimate threat out of the Pac-12 this season. They very well have a good shot to do it. I hope they do. It would be a great story and a great finish for Michael Penix Jr., who feels like he's been in college football for years, but he is playing some of his best football up in Washington right now for the Huskies. So that was an exciting game. Great victory for Washington. You hate to see it for Dan Lanning, but Washington did what they needed to do to secure the victory. Another Pac-12 game that I'll focus on briefly here is Colorado versus Stanford. This was a late Friday night game that I didn't get a chance to watch because, well, I was sleeping. It eventually ended in the early morning hours on Saturday as it went to 2 overtimes. I believe this game ended at like 2:21 a.m. Eastern time. So my ass was well asleep. I was well into my slumber, my REM sleep. You need it. And these late games in the Pac-12, I mean, they're brutal for East Coasters like myself. That game started at 10 p.m. Eastern. So that's way, way too late. But in this game, Colorado got out to a hot start. The Buffaloes outscored Stanford 29-0 in the first half, but then found itself outscored in the second half 36-14 before eventually succumbing to the Stanford tree in 2 overtimes. Buffs quarterback Shedeur Sanders was sensational, throwing for 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, and only 1 interception on 33 of 47 passing. Travis Hunter, he returned. He had a lacerated spleen, I believe. A few weeks ago, he was out for a while. He returned this week, and he was back to his old self. The two-way player registered 5 tackles on defense while hauling in 13 passes on offense for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. Hunter looks like a video game out there. He had one spin move that was bonkers. You've probably seen it on some of the highlight clips or on X or on Instagram. This dude had a really tight spin to get away from the defender, and he ultimately scored on that play. Travis Hunter is fun. He's a fun watch, and it's a shame that he was out those past few weeks because I wonder if it would have made a difference with having him in the games. I'm thinking about USC and Oregon. It's always good to see Colorado playing with its best players, and Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders certainly are 2 of the most exciting players in college football right now, in my opinion. When we look at this game and break it down, I think you have to put the blame for this loss on the coaching, as the team just didn't show up in the second half. They're playing undisciplined ball throughout the game. Colorado was penalized 17 times for a total of 127 yards. And if you know me, I don't like those penalties. I think it takes away from the game. And when you're playing undisciplined ball like that, you deserve to lose, in my opinion. I mean, that's so bad. That's so bad to see. But I do want to give a shout out to Stanford wide receiver Eric Ayomanor, who, listen to this, he had 13 receptions for 294 yards and 3 touchdowns, including 1 scoring reception that went for 97 yards. Talk about some insane stats. He was balling out. That's crazy numbers. Good for him. Good for Stanford that they didn't get discouraged by the 29-0 deficit in the first half. They were able to rally back, and they just did it slowly, chipped away slowly into that lead that Colorado had to take them to overtime and to win after 2 overtimes. I mean, that's a thrilling victory for Stanford. It's a colossal upset for Colorado. They were down 29 points at the half. If you look at some of the history behind this comeback, it's the largest comeback in Stanford history, the 4th largest comeback in Pac-12 history, the largest halftime deficit overcome to win in Pac-12 history, the largest blown lead in Colorado history. So it's pretty embarrassing. There's no way to really sugarcoat it. There's no way to make this feel better than it is. This was bad. This was ugly. And this is a loss that Colorado is going to regret that they gave to Stanford. They literally gave it up. They had the win and they just let go. It's an embarrassing loss for Colorado. And at this point, the Buffs are in danger of not making a bowl game. There's a quote here from Deion Sanders after this game where he says, and I quote, "From youth on, I don't remember being up 29-0 and losing a football game," Sanders said. "I really don't. This is a little tough for me." There's another quote from him. These come from ESPN, and I quote, "Right now, we're not built for the moment. Some of our players aren't built for the moment where they have to make a play," end quote. Tough loss for Deion Sanders and his whole squad. The Buffs are going to have to figure it out. They have a bye week this upcoming week, which is probably good because they've played 2 overtime games already this season that have gone 2 overtimes at least. They had 2 late games. I believe the I believe the Colorado State matchup was a late game. This one against Stanford was late. So I think these guys need to really rest up. They could use that bye week because they're going to need to regroup and refocus before facing UCLA on October 28th. That will be a big-time matchup, and it could be ugly. I really am worried at this point that they're not going to make a bowl game. It was fun in the early part of the season when Deion Sanders was motivating. All these celebrities are out there. They were the hottest team in college football, and now it's starting to feel like it could be a letdown. So there's still games to be played. They still have an opportunity to capitalize on some of their dreams. But if they don't turn this around ASAP, they are not going to make a bowl this year. And in my opinion, that might be a disappointment for all the hype that surrounded Deion Sanders and this team this offseason. So more to come, more to see. And it'll be interesting to see how things shape up for Colorado. With that, I'm going to take a quick timeout. Don't go anywhere. On the other side of the break, I'll give you my top 5 locks for Week 8 action, and then I'll preview Penn State versus Ohio State, and then we'll wrap this podcast up with a bow. Don't go anywhere. The Cherry Pickin' Podcast will be right back.
Want to know what life is really like after the game is all over? Real athletes are here to share their true stories of adversity and triumph every week on After Orange Slices. Even if you don't like sports, pro athletes, former college stars, celebrities, coaches, public speakers, doctors, and all kinds of experts join the show, and there's a little bit of something for everybody. Join me, Bridget, for a slice of inspiration, plus your everyday sports news sprinkled in. New episodes every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Basketball is back. And with that comes joy, tension, heartbreak, buzzer beaters, and elation. It's time to be courtside for every one of those moments, no matter where your team is playing. Short Court specializes in making replica and custom basketball courts for your home, office, sports cave to decorate your walls with all those memories. If you have a picture, we can recreate it. Featured in the 2021 UniWatch Holiday Gift Guide, short courts are made using real wood. We frame and give them an epoxy finish to protect the new centerpiece of your memorabilia collection. With previous customers including Northern Kentucky University, Southern Utah University, 199 Apparel, The Perimeter Podcast with Adam Morrison, and many more celebrating the careers and retirements of their coaches, it's time you visit shortcourts.com for more info and a gallery of our work, or you can send us an email, info@shortcourts.com. Be sure to find us on social media, just search for Short Courts. It's time to bring the home court home.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Now I'm going to give you my top 5 locks for Week 8 action. We'll start in the ACC. I'm taking Florida State over Duke. Right now, Florida State is rolling. They're the hottest team in the ACC. The Noles are coming off a dominating 41-3 victory over Syracuse to keep them undefeated at 6-0. Duke has been playing well this season. At the time of this recording, the Blue Devils are up 23-3 on my beloved NC State Wolfpack. Duke has been impressive this season in their own right, but this is a homecoming matchup for Florida State, and if history is an indicator of future success, the Noles have never lost to Duke in 21 matchups between these two schools. So I'm taking Florida State over Duke. I think they've got the momentum right now on their side. They are the hottest team in the ACC. I think the Noles win over Duke. In the Big Ten, I'm taking Nebraska over Northwestern, Chicago's Big Ten team. These two teams have identical schedules at 3-3 right now. They're 1-2 in the Big Ten. But I'm going to take Nebraska in this matchup. The Cornhuskers are better coached. They'll be playing at home, and they are coming off of a bye. I'm not trying to talk out of turn here, but I think the Cornhuskers could win 3 straight games and become bowl eligible. If they beat Northwestern this week, they get Purdue at home the following week, which I believe they can win. They have a chance of beating Purdue. And then they have a matchup against a struggling Michigan State team on November 4th who just lost to Rutgers this past weekend. If Matt Rule can get his team to a bowl game, I think that's a huge victory for him in his first season at the helm. Something that Scott Frost couldn't do, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't think he took them to a bowl game ever. So if Matt Rule can get to a bowl game this season, that is a huge win for his coaching staff and for the Cornhuskers. So this weekend it starts. They need to get a victory over Northwestern, which I think they will do. So I'm taking the Cornhuskers over the Wildcats. In the Big 12, I'm taking West Virginia over OK State. West Virginia lost a heartbreaker this past week against Houston in the final seconds of that game. The Mountaineers have been playing consistent ball this season as they had won 4 straight games prior to that loss. OK State, on the other hand, has been confusing as hell. They beat a ranked Kansas team this week and Kansas State the week before that, but they lost to Iowa State 34-27, who I'm not really high on. I don't think they're that good. And they also got embarrassed to South Alabama 33-7 in week 3. They have the talent to compete with any team in the Big 12, but they are too unreliable for me, so I'm taking West Virginia to get a good bounce back victory against the Cowboys this weekend. Then in the Pac-12, I'm taking the Huskies over ASU. The Huskies won't suffer any sort of letdown or fatigue against ASU after their barn burner of a victory to Oregon this past weekend. Arizona State is currently 1-5 and winless at 0-3 within the conference. Michael Penix Jr. will throw for some monster numbers in this matchup against the Sun Devils, and I think the Huskies will win big over Arizona State this weekend. So I'm taking Washington over Arizona State. Then in the SEC, I'm taking Tennessee over Bama. This was probably, my dark horse victory of the week. History is not on Tennessee's side in this matchup to Bama. The Volunteers have lost the last 9 trips to Tuscaloosa by an average of 20.9 points per game. Both of these teams are coming off close victories in Week 7. Tennessee beat Texas A&M by a score of 20-13, while Bama survived a scare at home to beat Arkansas 24-21. The keys for Tennessee in this game, I think you got to feed the ball to running back Jalen Wright, who is coming off an impressive performance against Texas A&M where he rushed for 136 yards on 19 carries. But I expect Bama's defense to show up coming off of a game in which the unit held Arkansas to 250 yards and 4 of 14 on third downs. This will be a tough physical game, but I'm giving the slight edge to Tennessee in the upset. So there we have it, my friends. Those are my top 5 straight up locks for Week 8 action. We are already in Week 8, if you can believe it or not. Let me run those down for you one more time. In the ACC, I'm taking FSU over Duke. In the Big 10, I'm taking Nebraska over Northwestern. In the Big 12, I'm taking West Virginia over OK State. In the Pac-12, I'm taking Washington over Arizona State. And in the SEC, I'm taking Tennessee over Bama. There are some big games this weekend within Week 8 action. If we look in the Pac-12, we got Washington State versus Oregon, which can be a big game. Utah versus USC can be big as well. Right now, they're down to Notre Dame at the time that I'm recording this. And then in the ACC, Clemson versus Miami certainly will be a good one as well. But the biggest game of the weekend upcoming here is Ohio State versus Penn State. And in my opinion, it's put up or shut up time for James Franklin and his Penn State Nittany Lions. Now what I'm about to read to you is what I wrote, what I recorded on my preseason podcast to start the season several weeks ago when it was summer. This is what I said at that time. Franklin is in his 10th season in Happy Valley. His teams have achieved 11 wins 4 times during that span. But Penn State is 0-11. Let me repeat that. They are 0-11 against teams within the top 10 during the regular season. And this dates back to 2016. For Penn State to break through to the next level, they're playing really well right now. They're undefeated like they normally are at this point in the season. They go undefeated deep into the season until they play ranked teams such as Ohio State and Michigan. But for them to break through, Penn State, they'll need to win against teams such as Ohio State and more recently Michigan, who will be playing within the top 10 all season. Now, granted, I said this back in the preseason. If you look at the current rankings, Ohio State is currently ranked number 3 in the nation, while Michigan is ranked ahead of them at number 2 in all of FBS right now. So, once Franklin can do this, once he can beat Ohio State, I don't think there is any reason why Penn State can't be viewed as a national power. They've always been good, not great in my opinion. Penn State has enough weapons to go on a run this season. They won't face a true test until October 21st when the Lions hit the road to face the Buckeyes. The Nittany Lions face the Buckeyes. So I say all that because I live in Pennsylvania. I'm in Philly. Penn State is big here. Penn State is big in college football. But they need to show me something. They need to beat Ohio State. They need to beat Michigan. Could this be the season that they do it? Maybe. It starts this weekend. This is their first test after, I think they played UMass last weekend or this past weekend and beat them out pretty big, which is crazy that they're playing those types of teams so deep into the regular season, but I digress. College Game Day will be in Columbus for this matchup. Ohio State sailed to an easy victory against Purdue in Week 7, beating the Boilermakers 41-7 in West Lafayette. That was slight work for the Buckeyes. Ohio State has been battle tested this season. If you recall their down to the wire matchup against Notre Dame a few weeks ago, the Buckeyes also boasted third best scoring defense in FBS at 10.2 points per game. So Ohio State is ready for this moment. They've been waiting for this moment. They cannot wait to get Penn State at home this weekend. They've been battle tested, but for Penn State, this is the first true test of their season. This matchup has the makings to be a high-scoring affair, but if Penn State's defense can show up and show out, I think the Nittany Lions will be happy with the outcome this upcoming Saturday. So it's a big-time game, Ohio State versus Penn State. And I said high-scoring affair, but honestly, it could be low-scoring with the amount of defense these two teams have. But for some reason, I have a feeling that there will be an exciting show of offense on display for these teams. So I'll be glued in for that big-time matchup in the Big Ten. It's got big-time implications on the standings within the Big Ten, but also the standings in the top 25. So I'm pumped. I'm excited. I'm ready for Week 8. I hope you're excited for Week 8. I hope this podcast helped you in some way get ready for the moment. I appreciate you downloading this episode. I appreciate you following me, supporting me. Most importantly, I appreciate you being a friend. Thank you for listening to this episode. I cannot wait to talk to you soon. Hope you have a great week and hope you have a fun weekend. Week 8 action is coming at you. Take care, everybody. Peace. Roll, damn Redbirds. Roll, baby, roll. Thank you again for tuning into my Cherry Pickin' podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe to my show and drop me a rating on Apple Podcasts. All of my digital content can be found at the website CherryPickinSports.com. And if you are looking to interact with me via social media, my Twitter handle is @Cherry_Pickin. That's PICKIN. On my Twitter, you'll also find a link to my blog where I post my weekly college football predictions and analysis. I can also be reached via email at cherrypickinsports@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out to me regarding what you like about this podcast or about what content you'd like to hear more of on future episodes. I sincerely thank you for your support, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Take care.